There are plenty of videos on YouTube that show you how to replace the entire window winding mechanism on a Skoda Octavia, but no one showed how to actually use one of the repair kits. So normally you buy the whole panel like this, and it's already got the window winding mechanism with the cables already installed, but it's quite expensive. And what you can get for a fraction of the cost are replacement cables, replacement pulley and replacement sliders, and it's not that difficult a job to do. So in the kit you get 3 cables. One of them is different to the others in as much, well, I've got the old ones here, so you can see that this one has 2 ends which are identical. Now this is the cable which runs from the bottom of the slider on the left up around the top pulley to the top of the slider on the right. And then you have 2 other cables onto which you slide a pair of springs. If you look at the end, you'll see the swage on the end of that is bigger than the swage on the opposite end. It's got like a flat disc on it to stop the spring from coming off. So you load the springs onto the 2 new cables, and then the longer cable, that's the one that goes from the top of the left-hand slider up around the upper pulley, and then that goes around the pulley in the centre. And then the shorter cable, you can see what happened to my old cable here. It's corroded and snapped. So this end is the one with a spring on it. That goes into the top of the right hand slider around the bottom pulley, and then it wraps around the pulley in the centre. So that's the 3 cables and which ones go where. Now the pulley in the centre, I won't pull all this apart because I've put it in and it's, as you can see, it's under tension now. You have to route it carefully because you don't want it to be running on the metal. There's some notches in the metal where the cable needs to run, and there's a small plastic guide. Now before I reinstall this, I'm going to apply some grease to the sliding points and make sure that it moves freely. But the bit you need to be aware of for the pulley in the middle, this is the old one, I've used the new one that came with the kit. You can see that there are 2 sides to it. The one with the teeth visible, that's the side that faces out to where the motor is going to engage. So that's the direction it needs to go. Now, in terms of which cable goes into which hole, you've got 2 notches, and if you look carefully, you can see where the cable exit is on one but not on the other. So where there's a cable exit, you simply feed the cable down in and it hooks in, and then you route it around. Okay, so the other one, you can see there's no cable exit from this one, so that one you have to insert the cable from the opposite side and then lie it flat, and then it hooks around inside the groove. You'll see there's a notch in the edge where the cable exits, and then that's where it starts running in the grooves. Now to work out which one goes in which position, you need to look at the direction of the notches compared to the where the cable comes out. So because it's got to go with the teeth face down, then you want the cable exits to be on the right hand side as you look at it, because if it ends up this way round on the left side, then the cables will rub against the metal. So you want to work out which one has got to go on which side. So a quick bit of experimentation, and it doesn't take long. You can see which one needs to come out and go up to this upper pulley. Once you've done one, what I suggest is that you wind it on. So you hook it in properly, and then you wind it on maybe a couple of turns like this, with it in the right grooves, and hold it in situ, and you'll have a bit of slack in the cable. Then what I would do is I would flip it over, put the other cable in, carefully route it into its notch on the edge, put a couple of turns around it, and you'll see the cables will start to get tight. Then what you want to do is you want to get it as tight as you can, and at this point the pulley will be down fairly tight like this as it pulls the cables tight, and you'll start to see the springs compressing. And then the last bit, you need to gradually work the cables in the grooves sort of moving the pulley side to side, and you'll hear them sort of snap in. And then eventually when you turn it to the position where the cable's just pulling at quite a tight angle, it will sort of snap round and the cables will route correctly. And at that point you're in business. And then all you need to do is put this black plastic cover down on the top after applying some grease to the bearing surfaces. Now there's only one other point that I haven't mentioned, and that's with the sliders. So I've decided not to use the two ones from the kit because they're quite tight and I don't want to risk breaking the glass. I'm sure they'd probably be okay, but the manufacturer's original ones work perfectly, so I'm not going to risk it. But in terms of putting the cable in, like this one's slightly better. When you put the cable in, you'll see there's a big hole there and a small hole on that side. Now the big hole, that's where the spring goes. So you can see the spring goes in and you just slide the cable down. Now it has to exit at an angle like that so that you can put in the smaller one into the opposite direction. Sorry, I'm putting that in the wrong way. That goes into the smaller hole like that, and then that exits at an angle on the top, and you can see where the cables are designed to sit, and that's so that they then route properly into the mechanism and run against the pulleys. Okay, and this spring gets tensioned like this as you put the cables around the drum and pull it tight. So I think that's all you need to know about fitting the cables as a repair kit. What I've decided to do, because I had to drill out the pop rivets to take this off, I'm inserting some nutserts, some aluminium M5 nutserts into the door frame, and I've just had to drill out the holes very slightly, and I've borrowed a tool from a friend, but you could just use an M5 bolt and a nut and just tighten them down to pull the nut bush in. And then I'm just using some M5 screws with some larger washers, because you'll find the holes where the rivets came out are quite large. So what I've done is that's the aluminium nutsert or riv nut. Okay, so that's gone into the door frame in the car, and then I'm going to screw the inner panel in place using some M5 stainless screws with some M6 washers. Now I've used a countersunk screw to help centre the washer, because the holes are quite big in the panel. Okay, and then at least if I need to gain access again because there's a problem with the window winder or the door lock mechanism, then at least I can just undo the screws and take this panel out without having to drill out all the rivets again. So anyway, I hope that was useful to someone. I must admit, when I looked, I couldn't find anything about how to install these repair kits. It wasn't that difficult, but at least this would give you a heads up before you start the job. Thanks then.